And Mr. Long, when you are ready, you go right ahead.
Awesome. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the August 30th, 2021 Scituate School Committee meeting. In response to Governor Baker's declaration of a public health emergency and the related emergency executive order dated March 12, 2020, Scituate public meetings shall meet remotely until further notice. This meeting will be recorded and will be posted following the meeting. Public comment will be available through Zoom. Community members can also email me at mlong@cit.org. Any correspondence with the district or school committee made available to the public through public record or FOIA requests will by law not include the private information of staff and students. I know that's been a point that's come up several times in the community the past couple of weeks. I want to make sure that was clear. So before we get, we'll call the meeting to order through roll call vote. Brandolini?
Yes.
Lindblom?
Yes.
Gates?
Yes.
And Long, yes. So before we get into the agenda, Superintendent Burke, I just wanted to give a quick update on the DESE update that came out last week. I'll turn it over to you, Superintendent Burke.
Thank you, Chairman Long. Good evening, everyone. I do want to sneak a quick sailor shout out in if I could. I just wanted to thank our amazing community members that were out yesterday at the Gates Middle School for Beautification Day. There was a lot of weed pulling, a lot of dirt moved, and the place looks wonderful. So a lot of hands make light work. So thank you to everybody. I was able to stop by and I'm just super impressed with the community involvement, and want to thank you all for doing that. I know the Gates PTO and Shore were actively involved in coordinating this, so my thanks to them as well. It really paid off and the place looked beautiful today. As far as the guidance, more of a directive and a mandate from DESE, I just want to read verbatim what the state had sent out. So on August 25th, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education issued requirements for masking that are to be implemented at all schools effective immediately. Accordingly, and until further notice, all Scituate Public Schools students, staff, and visitors are required to wear masks while inside Scituate Public School buildings and while attending school-sponsored indoor activities. Masks will not be required during lunch while students are eating or staff, and will not be required while outside of the buildings for any other reason. The mask requirement will be in place until at least August 1st, 2021. The Commissioner will revisit the requirement in the near future to revise it as warranted by public health data. After October 1st, 2021, if a school demonstrates a vaccination rate of 80% or more of students and staff in the school, then vaccinated individuals in the school would no longer be subject to the DESE mask requirement. DESE will provide additional information to districts in the coming weeks in preparation for the October 1 date, including how to demonstrate the 80% vaccination rate threshold. We will be sharing with our families as part of my welcome back letter this information. We're also finishing up a comprehensive Safe and Strong health and safety document similar to that we sent out last year, which will have a lot more details on all COVID related matters and masking and social distancing and that type of thing. So that will go out Wednesday the 1st with my welcome back letter. So folks, please pay attention for that. It'll have a lot more details and hopefully answer a lot of the questions you have involving back to school. And then we'll obviously have contact information if you should have questions after that document goes up. So that's the update on DESE. We had staff back in buildings today, and we're abiding by the mandate as adults returning to work this week. Chairman Long, do you want me to roll right into staff introductions next, new staff?
Yep, I think that's perfect, Garth, and thank you for that update.
Okay, thank you. So today we welcomed all our new teachers to the Scituate Public School family for their orientation training. According to our local historian, Miss Bonnie Donahue, this was the largest group in several years that she can remember. So that's exciting. I want to thank Miss Fiddler and Miss Burke, our mentor leaders, as well as Miss Driscoll for planning and the preparation of this important event. went off without a hitch, and it was a wonderful experience for our new teachers. So much so that we've invited them here tonight in a tradition that I love, introducing the new teachers at the school committee meeting. And tomorrow, all our staff are back to kick off the new year with an opening day celebration, followed by 3 consecutive days of professional learning for our teachers in preparation for the September 8th opening of school. So what I'd like to do is I'll start with the central office new staff. And for those staff that are being introduced tonight in the audience, because we're on Zoom, if you could go down to the reactions button on the bottom of your screen and raise your hand. That way, and we'll pause after each person just to make sure that the folks in the audience can put a face to a name and welcome you aboard. We'll be doing this in person tomorrow at our welcome back celebration. What I'll do is I'll go first, and then I'll call on each of our principals to introduce their staff. Okay. So first we have Administrative Assistant to the Assistant Superintendent and Director of DEI, Miss Joanne Anderson. Joanne's here, if she could raise her hand. Okay, next up we have our new out of district coordinator, Miss Megan Fennessy. Megan is not here this evening. Next, we have a new school resource officer, Mr. Nick Sherry, who is unable to make it tonight, but will be in person tomorrow. And then the last one on my list that I know is here, our new Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction Assessment, Ms. Heidi Driscoll. Welcome, Heidi. So next, I'll turn it over to Principal Moffett to introduce the great new folks at Cushing Elementary.
Thank you very much. I have the pleasure of welcoming two new people to our Cushing community, Leah Block, Leah Block is going to be an instructional paraprofessional with us at Cushing, and Ryan Vaughn. Ryan is now our junior custodian. He's done a great job. He came in midsummer to pick things up. I'm also fortunate to be able to welcome back Christine Tarantino as an instructional para. She served as a long-term sub, and she's with us now permanently. And Maureen Gallivan as well, who is, served as a long-term sub last year, and she has just joined our food services. And we have our newest first grade teacher, who was a long-term sub last year, Chelsea Dunn, and we want to welcome her. We're very excited to have her as part of our first grade team. So I know Chelsea's there. Who else is there? Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Moffett.
You're welcome.
Next up, we'll have Ms. Ward from Hatherley.
Good evening, thank you. Yes, I also am lucky enough to have a long list of people that are going to be joining us. In first grade, we have Jordan Levine. In second grade, we have Hannah Shesky. I see Jordan waving. Jordan has been in all summer already, so I feel like I already know her so well. Same with Hannah Shesky. Hannah was with us last year as the remote teacher, but is now going to be in person, and she'll be teaching second grade. In addition, we have Maddie Damphouse, and I know I saw Maddie on here. Maddie was with us for a long-term sub last year, and she's going to remain a long-term sub, but in third grade. We also have hired a few paraprofessionals. Bridget Bradley will be with us, Christine Kalachi, Mara Swords Dauber, and Beatrice Gallagher is our most recent. As custodians, we've hired Doug Tolman, and we are very lucky to have Bob Stafford have joined our staff. Both of those gentlemen are unbelievable, and I know the superintendent will back me up when I say I was at a meeting saying how incredible it's been in the building. So I welcome all of those friends.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Ward. Next, Ms. Long for the new Jenkins staff.
Good evening. Please join me in welcoming a special education teacher, Margaret Amon. We have an adjustment counselor for the GEMS program, Ms. Kaylee Bloss. We have a new nurse, Ms. Mary Ryan Conway. And we have a cafeteria hostess, Kirsten Gilmore. We also have 2 instructional paraprofessionals joining us, Trisha Mendungo and Julia Nelson. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Long. Next up, Ms. Reardon from Wampatuck.
Good evening, everyone. So we have some great people joining the Wampatuck team for this coming school year. We have Elizabeth Horn, who's going to be teaching 4th grade for us. We have Sarah Piasecki, who's our new special education teacher. We have Rachel Rosado, who did a long-term sub for our library paraprofessional last year, and she's now going to be in a permanent position in the library with us. We have Carol Considine, who's going to be an ECC paraprofessional. We have Emily Davis, who's going to be an instructional paraprofessional. We have Colleen Gumares, who is our new early childhood education teacher. And then we have Mark Dupre, who is a new custodian. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reardon. Next up, Mr. Beatty, Gates Middle School.
Hi, everyone. We're really excited to add many talented educators to Gates this year. First up, we have Tracy Shepard, who will be joining us as an 8th grade special education teacher. We have Charlotte DeVere, who will be joining us as a specialized paraprofessional in our Gates Learning Center. We have Mark Dugas, who will be a custodian shared between Gates Middle School and Wampatuck Elementary. We have Ani Koziel, who will be our French and Latin teacher. We have Ben Hinckley joining us as our 7th grade social studies long-term substitute. We have Allison Guinan, who will be transitioning into the grade 6 science long-term substitute position. And as of today, we welcome Wendy Grace, our newest instructional paraprofessional to Gates Middle School. So thank you for helping me welcome everybody to our great school.
And thank you, Mr. Beatty. And last but not least, Dr. McGuire.
Good evening. We also have a number of new hires at the high school, and we're very excited to welcome the following team members. As a 10-month secretary, Jillian Corcoran. In world language, French teacher Jennifer Funkhauser. English, Courtney Hayden, who has served as a long-term sub for us and is taking a permanent position. A specialized paraprofessional who will work with our IXL program, Ryan Keefe. Art teacher, Jessica McGuire. Library media specialist, Tracy Newman. Biology teacher, Tyler Roberts. English long-term sub, Katie Rocha. In the guidance department, Zoe Ryan. In history, Kelly Trayers. As our piano music accompanist, also working at Gates, Sarah Troxler. In business education, Ron Valarin. A combined position between the high school and Gates, nurse Marianne Sham, who is also subbed in the district, athletic director Scott Payne. We have 2 additional staff members moving from long-term sub to permanent positions, Rosalind Kamani in guidance, and Jonathan Schindler in the math department. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McGuire, and thank you, principals, and welcome aboard, new staff. As you can see, we have a large number of new staff coming on board, and we're excited to get them rocking and rolling. So I'm sure they had a great day today learning the district a little bit, and we can learn a lot from them as well. So thank you all. It's been a busy hiring season and a very successful one.
Yeah, and on behalf of the school committee, I just want to say congratulations to everyone for being hired and welcome to Scituate Public Schools. And we wish you the best of luck for the coming school year. And we're all looking forward to the great work you do in our schools with our staff and students. So again, congratulations. We look forward to hearing from you over the course of the year. You're all welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting tonight, but I know you have a busy week. So if you do need to go, feel free. But I do thank you for coming tonight. As Superintendent Burke had said, this is one of the, the best parts of our meetings this year. We can just, we can welcome all of our new staff and, into the district. So thank you all for coming tonight. And thank you also for all the principals for introducing the new staff as well. So next on the agenda is a presentation from our new Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Heidi Driscoll, in her presentation on Introduction to Curriculum.
All right, thank you. Is it okay for me to share my screen?
Yep, feel free.
All right, thank you. Okay, can you see my first slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I've been asked to give an introduction to the curriculum, and it's been really great to put together because I've had an introduction to Scituate really from July 1st till now. So it's been wonderful to meet the principals, staff members, the other administrators, the wonderful support staff. And I've spent a lot of time trying to learn as much as possible so I can serve the community in this capacity. So the first thing I want to show you is a quick overview of what I hope to be covering tonight. The first thing is I'm going to define curriculum. I'm going to talk about our culture of excellence, which is one of our pillars this year. I'm going to cover some action steps that we will be taking this year, some potential partnerships, and an introduction to performance indicators. So the first thing that I want to share with you is my defining curriculum slide. From talking to lots of people in lots of different roles, it seems that our first and foremost job is to have a common understanding of what curriculum is. So I oversimplified this into 3 steps for everyone. The first thing is the state standards. When it comes to curriculum, and I just switched my slide to the state standard page. Can you see the state standard page?
Yes.
All right, great.
Yep.
So if you did want to look at what we are charged with teaching, these are the current frameworks for Massachusetts. It's just on the state website. And what's interesting is if it makes you want to click some of the things under it, but really the title itself is a live link to each of these documents, and you'll see everything that the state requires us to teach for each course, and that's the state standards. And then after state standards comes a district curriculum. And in short, a district curriculum is organized units of study based on those state standards. And there's lots of different ways for those standards to be organized, and that's usually done by department and by course. And then the last part, which is really what students and parents are most used to seeing, are lessons. Lessons themselves are not a curriculum per se. They're teacher-designed activities and experiences to help all students meet the state standards and develop transferable skills. So even though I can't go into every single state framework right now, what I thought I'd share with you was the portrait of a student who is prepared for college careers and civic participation. This is, of course, also by the state. Lots of schools right now have their own portrait of a student based on these. And these are just a few transferable skills, or they're not standards themselves, but they are qualities that we want graduates of Massachusetts schools and of course Scituate public schools to have when they graduate, so they're able to achieve their goals. Demonstrate independence, build strong content knowledge, respond to the varying demands of audience, task, purpose, and discipline, comprehend as well as critique, value evidence, use technology and digital media strategically and capably, and understand other perspectives and cultures. So if you want to read more about those, again, it's something that I hope we'll be sharing on our website, and it's something that is readily available in the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks. Let's see here. So the next slide I have is focusing on a culture of excellence. If you haven't heard, and what the teachers will hear more about tomorrow, is that something that we want to help foster this year is a culture of personal and academic excellence. And from talking to so many parents and educators, it's clear to me that I guess one of my mission is to help foster a sustainable culture of personal and academic excellence with whatever we do when we build our curriculum. And what teachers, counselors, department chairs, principals, administrators really would love is for community members to reach out to them. They want to cultivate an environment where all parents and caregivers are able to access, understand, and have confidence in our learning environments. Because we want students to be inspired by school, we want them to love school, and we want them to love to learn. So what are some of the actions that we'll take to make sure we have this sustainable and positive environment? These are just a few actions. The first one is curriculum acceleration. We're developing a team who will work on the alignment and coordination of documentation of our district curriculum documents. And the first task that group will do is conduct a needs assessment. And the needs assessment will be something that parents, students, teachers, all stakeholders will be able to have a voice in, so that way the work isn't done in a silo and it's done truly as a partnership, so we can decide where we want to be and scale it up for all departments and grade levels. Something else that you should stay tuned for are acceleration academies. Thankful to some grant funding, we're going to be able to provide some school-based academies, enrichment academies that will allow all students to access some innovative programming in addition to the regular school day. So I'm sure you've heard from other districts, there's learning loss and things like that, and we have to make up for the time that's been lost. Truly, what we want to do is accelerate and help kids find their talents and their passions and be able to use that to connect them to our schools and let them feel and be leaders and enjoy growing and learning in their home away from home in Scituate. And the last thing I have is partnerships. We are establishing and working on establishing some partners to help Scituate Public Schools achieve some more measurable outcomes. One, for example, is with Mass Insight, which is an organization that's going to help us focus on some very specific strategies to increase and expand our AP programming. They've had tremendous success, and some examples of opportunities that we'll have through Mass Insight is students will be able to work with children from other schools to do some prep Saturday PD programs. Our AP teachers will have access to mentors. There's really the support is limitless, really. It's a wonderful place. And something that we hope will be developed, Superintendent Burkhead and I are meeting with the team later this month. We hope that we will be able to become a Bridgewater State University professional development school district. And that means that Bridgewater would literally partner with us to make sure that we are always connected with high quality, current and relevant professional development that's connected to really our teacher prep programs and the current field of education. So something else that was very difficult for me to really decide what to share here. I wanted to share some data, but our MCAS data, our accountability data, it's not public yet. So I have two slides that are samples. So I'm calling this an introduction to performance indicators. So depending on the questions we want answered, there's always data that we can use to analyze and come up with measurable outcomes. But here's something that I've been hearing that people have been worried about the achievement in Scituate, that it might have fallen, so on and so forth. So I wanted to use the high school math 2019 as a sample. If you look at the navy blue bar, I hope that's clear on your screens, You can see in 2015, 16, 17, and 18, that was the advanced category. And we were very high achieving in that advanced category. It looks as if our advanced category took a huge dip in 2019, dropped 86%. You notice my stop sign above that. MCAS 2.0 happened in 2019, which if there wasn't a conversation about that with the staff or with parents or with school committee or with the public, it's really important that we redefine how we look at data like this. So MCAS 2.0 is very different because they wanted to make sure that meeting grade level standards was clear. And if you are advanced, you're not just advanced at a grade level standard, you are actually exceeding the expectations of your grade level. So an example that I use with other people when I do trainings in how to use data is that with MCAS 1.0, if I were a 10th grader and I were a gymnast, which I'm neither of those, I would do a cartwheel. And if my cartwheel was an excellent 10th grade cartwheel, I would get advanced. Now on MCAS 2.0, if I'm a 10th grader and I'm a gymnast and I want to get advanced, a cartwheel's not enough. I would have to do a cartwheel and a round off and a back handspring and a no-handed something or other, because I would have to exceed my grade level standards. So the rigor was ramped up in 2019 when it comes to those categories. So some people who maybe in the past have seen their children getting advanced might have seen the proficient or meeting expectations category that year. So that's something that that changed. So when we look at data, we really would look at 2019 and beyond. However, now things have changed again. I actually was at a meeting today with the state, and they right now are setting new benchmarks for districts because 2020, we don't have data. 2021 is a whole new landscape. So here's something that we will not have for 2021, but we may have for the year after. And this is this is another example of how we need to look at data so we can make sure that we're supporting all students in all schools. So what a percentile ranking is it basically compares a certain group of students to that same group of students across the state. So in this case, this is the achievement of Scituate High School students, all students. And they ranked in the 87th percentile. That means they are higher achieving in math, English, and science than 87%. It's the 87th percentile. If we were 100, we'd be top. Now, if you look at the high needs category, that includes several different subgroups. Students are counted once, not several times. We're at the 72nd percentile, which is great, but you notice there's a gap. There is a gap between where our high needs students are and compared to all high needs students in all other high schools, 9 through 12. So we would look at that number and ask some questions. So when we look at data, it's never about blame. It's really about questions. What does this mean and where do we go from here? And I think where we're going from here is up. I'm ready to do this with all of you. And I know the school committee will have some questions. So I will stop my share and I'd love to hear from you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Driscoll, for that presentation. So what I'll do now is I'll open it up to the rest of the committee for any questions that they might have.
Hi, Mike, I have a couple of questions for Heidi. Thank you for explaining that that dip with the MCAS, because I think that's that explanation was pretty clear, and I hope a lot of people understand why some kids are now proficient versus that advanced. So school districts across the state will see that same dip, probably.
Correct. Yes, school districts across the state saw that dip.
Mm-hmm.
It happened in the elementary grades, I want to say 3 years prior, because they went to MCAS 2.0 a couple years earlier.
Okay. And the Acceleration Academies, would you be able to give an example of of one of these academies that would be available for the students?
I cannot give you the details of that academy right now because we are creating a committee that is going to build what those district-wide expectations are for those academies. But I can tell you this, it will involve teachers, counselors, focusing on the whole student. There will be opportunities for remediation and support, but there will also be opportunities. Something I heard from parents is, hey, my student goes to school and they want more. My student is very talented. They want more to do. They want more leadership opportunities. This, I hope, will be an opportunity for some of those kids to find those leadership roles and really become engaged in the school district.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from the rest of the committee?
I just make a comment, I guess, Mike. Heidi, thanks very much. I think that, first of all, it was very informative, easy to understand, and I appreciate that. I think sometimes presentations that we see, you know, with items like this, we don't always necessarily understand. But this was clear, concise, and I think a great introduction to the curriculum. I think it's important for the committee as well as folks potentially that are attending here that we are held to state standards. I think you did a good job of explaining that, the different criteria and so on, standards that we're held to. So I really just want to say thank you for doing that. I would anticipate that perhaps we'll hear more about maybe some specifics to curriculum as the year progresses. Not quite sure how that, what we'll want to see or if there are specifics that anyone might want to see, but potentially the long-term goal, as you said, is to get everything online and people can access it at their leisure. But I know that that's probably what, a 12-month to 18-month process.
Well, typically for one content area, it's a 12-month process, but we're accelerating. So hopefully it will be shorter than that. What we want to do right now is a needs assessment. So that curriculum acceleration team needs to do a needs assessment so we can hear people. So we want to hear about the curriculum, but we don't know what that means together. So we need your voice, we need parents' voices, we need students to give us feedback so that we'll be able to have a strong foundation. So we're not, I guess, building the boat while we're sailing in it.
Okay. And I just want to comment. I think that when Bill announced that you were coming on, he expressed how data-driven you were. I think that it's great to see that, because I don't think that we've really focused on data in the past. So I appreciate that effort, and I think that it will show where we need to improve and where we need to get better. But thank you for that.
My pleasure.
I just have a quick comment too. I think, like you said, the needs assessment is kind of, I'm not sure what questions I have, because I guess I'd like more information about what our needs are specifically. I would say like a simple common starting point too is in Scituate, there was a shift. I don't even know when it occurred, but it used to be called curriculum night in September. And that was when you could go in and get, even in a first grade level, here's, what the kids will be learning throughout the year, or at least like a little preview of what this is where we're headed. And now it's just back to school night. And it's like, come see the beautiful, amazing job that our teachers have done setting up the classrooms and getting ready to go. And maybe that's not, that's a blanket statement in a sense, but I think to get back to that curriculum night, so that's the focus, and to say, hey, like, this is what first graders will be expected to know by December or something, like after the first trimester, just to give parents sort of a level, a bulleted kind of view of what to expect their children to be learning, what they should know, where they should be at, so that when they see things coming home, they kind of have a better understanding of the direction that their kids should be headed in. I know that's come up a lot in conversation.
So it absolutely has. And that was one of the most common things I heard when I met individually with people. So something that is coming your way is that we are actually not just having a general open house this year. all schools are having an expectations night. So
Love
to
it.
call it a curriculum night, we really can't show you the whole curriculum in one
Sure.
night. That would be like trying to sip water from a fire hose. But what we can do is share expectations. So that's something, I don't know if, I bet all the principals were like, we're doing that. We have
I
that."
love that. That's
Yeah,
great.
so that's something that thankfully is already in the works for this year.
Great. And I mean, from my perspective, I think hearing the, the constant push for rigor, the expectations that we're setting in the district, I think is great. And I think this is a great starting point of, what we're going to be able to show to the community over the course of this year, just in terms of, what it means for our kids to come back to school in person on September 8th, and then how they're progressing throughout the course of the year. And getting these kind of updates, I think will be very helpful. Another question I had, I don't know if it's for you, Superintendent Burkhead, is just making sure that either we get this out on the school website and ensure that it's out there, or including it as part of that back to school packet that you're sending out on the first, I believe, Superintendent Burkhead, just so that people can access those links, people can go in and start looking at the state curriculum, and not, for the many people that are not on this meeting, be able to get that documentation and know that this is what's coming. And then on expectations night and things like that, we'll be able to show how we're setting the standard for this year. But thank you for this, Ms. Driscoll. I think it's a great start for our curriculum for this year.
Thank you so much. You were all so nice to me. I was very nervous. Thank you very much.
I think you had every question that I sent you over the past, week and a half. So that made it easier for me. So if there are no questions from the rest of the other questions from the committee, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is under new business, our student handbooks.
Mr. Long, can I just make one closing comment to that agenda item, please?
Yep, of course.
Thank you. Just want to thank Ms. Driscoll. She's only been here, almost over a month, and we've gotten a lot done. I want to thank our team for welcoming her and just working very well together. I do want to kind of highlight some things that she said that was important. What I will agree with Mr. Gates is that we wanted the presentation, because curriculum is such a big topic, is to make it easy to understand, include data, and then give people some focal points that we will be coming back and reporting out on. The sentence that I liked was that we will provide access, understanding to the curriculum for everybody. And so that we will have, so the community will have confidence in our curriculum. And I think we want to get to that place. We're not there now because we don't deserve to be. That's nobody's fault. The good news is it's going to be a team effort to build this, including the community. She talked about the needs assessment being the first step. So I really am excited about that. And we plan on, either through Ms. Driscoll, myself, our department chairs and coordinators, our principals, this will be a common theme throughout the year that we'll be getting into more detail on. So tonight was kind of a high level example. We're excited about the partnerships too. Those partnerships, not every district has. And as we try to define being the best district in the world, those are some things that I know Ms. Driscoll's working on that we haven't had in the future to help support the work we do. And so I just wanted to kind of also emphasize those partnerships, and we'll be reporting back on pretty much everything she highlighted tonight in more detail in later meetings. So thank you.
Mr. Long, actually have one question relative to that.
I have a question too,
Burkhead.
sorry.
The relationship that you're working on relative to Bridgewater State, is that for teacher professional development, or does it include access to college level courses for students? I'm just curious. I think I misinterpreted what's happening.
Yeah, I'll let Ms. Driscoll handle that. I will say that those partnerships are not easy to come by. So although Ms. Driscoll and I are both professors there, so hopefully that gives us some pull, and we do have connections there. So we're hoping to use those as leverage to get our school this advantage. So Ms. Driscoll, you want to fill in the blanks on that partnership?
Sure. When I can give you an example of what some of the partnerships look like at other schools and other districts. Those partnerships are unique to the needs of each particular district. So there is no cookie cutter partnership. When I worked at Galligan Elementary, that was the first time I became involved with a partnership with Bridgewater. We were a professional development school, and we had a huge amount of English language learners. We had a lot of kids reading below grade level, and we arranged it so we would have a 90-minute reading block every Wednesday morning, and we had reading buddies is what we called them, but essentially I want to say it was grade 1 and 2, or maybe it was K and 1, had a college level reading buddy, and they loved it, and they read together, and it motivated them. And we had all these pre-service teachers. That's one tiny example of what a partnership can do. At another school district, we made a cohort of aspiring administrators, and through a discounted rate, they had a cohort and all got their CAGs through Bridgewater. That was one. Another thing that they can do is work with us to make sure that our teachers have access to different professional development or PDP points that they need for recertification. And another example is the dual enrollment opportunities, if that is something we chose to do. Essentially, if when we meet, we make a wish list, if you will, of things that we would love to have happen to make our district the best district in the world. And if we can have a mutually beneficial partnership, then it happens. And what we would do for them is, which I bet we really do already, is you would allow observers in the school district, have student teachers when appropriate. And that's about it.
Great, thank you. And if anyone can form that relationship or partnership, I think it's Bill and his team with you, Heidi. So thank you, and I'm sure we'll hear positive news on that front in the coming months. So thank you for those efforts.
Nicole, did you have a question as well?
Yes, thank you. Just a follow-up question. So, and I don't even know if you have the answers yet, maybe not, since it's only been less than probably 60 days that you've been on the job. But I'm just curious, from a budgetary standpoint, as a school committee and thinking ahead to planning, if you can answer this yet, is there any, and with, purchasing Eureka Math and everything for us was a big ticket item, and training PD and all the pieces that went with it. Is there any area that you could speak to now about that you and the team are like, oh gosh, we really need to invest like a significant chunk of change in this department, this curriculum, this piece that we need, that's really kind of something we want to see rise up?
So I can't this minute because we need the needs assessment in order to prioritize, but I can tell you that in a typical district that has a curriculum revision cycle, which means a different department or content area is revised about every 6 years to make sure you have up-to-date materials. Typically, that can run anywhere from $350,000 to $400,000 per year if you're doing K to 12. So it's not cheap to do that. But this year we wouldn't be doing a single area. We really are starting from the ground up right now. We're starting with the needs assessment. We're going to prioritize, and that's where we go from there.
Thanks. Just thinking about down the road where we should be thinking about money really and allocating. That makes sense.
Okay. Any final questions or comments from the committee? Okay, and Superintendent Burkett, I'll turn it back over to you for the student handbooks.
Thank you, Chairman Long. So each year we work hard on reviewing our handbooks, and each principal leads team to look them over and revise and improve our handbooks so they reflect each new year and what we've learned from the previous year. So those are kind of our guide and law book, as I would put it, for the school year. So tonight we have each principal coming in to share their executive summaries with you and updates on things that have changed or that are new for the handbooks, so that we can start the year and make sure that all families have access to them. So the elementary schools are all going together. They have the same handbooks. So I'll turn it over to the elementary school principals and let them start.
Good evening. I believe I will be going through the list. I think that you have a list given to you from Kim Peters, that has an outline of some of the updates that the elementary principals and I have made. Donna, Rebecca, and Tracy and I all worked together with Kelly Roach and Michelle Bobert just to make sure that we had everything updated. So I'm just going to go right through that list. First, the COVID-19 guidance was an appendix in our yearbook, in our handbook last year. However, because of the changes that are happening so quickly, and you cannot make changes to the handbook, we have decided to have that be a separate document. The superintendent has referred to this document earlier tonight that more information will be coming out separately. So that appendix is not in the handbook. However, the updated guidance from DPH, DESE, and the superintendent's office will be coming out separately. We also went through, updated all the staff names and dates. We added the DPH and DESE came out with an updated guidance on screenings, health screenings such as hearing, vision. So we added that piece into the handbook because what they're doing, what they're asking is that nurses prioritize the screenings. So that will be included. We also added in the immunization requirements for ECC, our early childhood program. We updated the first aid policy, the first aid information under the health services, just stating that nurses do not provide initial treatment for injuries. You know, that little person that says, oh, I fell last night and mom said, come on in and see the nurse. Those really should be handled at the doctor. Nurses are there for any injuries or any occurrences that happen during the school day. Immunization requirements. A link was added to the document so that if parents need additional information, they will be able to just click right on that link about immunizations and get all the information that they may need. Under the communicable diseases, we took out scabies from the list that was listed under particular problems in the school age population. Happy to say that that is not one. We added in the link to the bully prevention policy. It was not linked up, so we made sure we added that. We worked closely with Michelle Bobert so that we could update the special education laws as well as the terminology that was in each section. We eliminated some confusing language that we had in our code of conduct. For instance, one of them said, student understands that the teacher takes the place of the parent when the parent is not there. And we decided language like that is just not necessary. We kept in the no recording policy, although we're not remote classes this year, and we're thankful for that. In case we do conferences or anything at all online, we wanted to make sure we did keep the no recording policy intact. We removed the safe snack list. There's just no way of SPS having one list to disseminate to all parents that would take into the needs of all students. We did add a link in there to snacksafety.com just to help parents if they're not sure what snacks are safe and what, knowing any allergies that they might have in the classrooms. Again, I said that we have removed the COVID-19 appendix. That included the mask policy and the safety pledge that was included in there because that information will be included at a later time through the superintendent. We also clarified some language under around the religious exemption portion of the handbook. We wanted to make sure that that was clearly stated and anybody reading it would understand the exact requirements for such a thing. And that is what we have for elementary.
Are there any questions from the school committee regarding the proposed changes to the handbooks or for the elementary handbook?
I don't have any, Mike, but is it okay if I or one of us shares the screen just so that folks in attendance can also see the changes in our backup? Is that okay, or should we not do that?
Nope, that's fine. If you If you don't mind doing it, if you have it on your laptop, that's fine.
I'm gonna try. I'll share starting with the middle school.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have us go through all three handbooks, and then we'll vote all three at the end.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Principal Ward, for showing that, and for our 4 elementary principals for putting the changes together. If there are no other questions on it, I'll move forward to the Gates Middle School handbook.
Okay, good evening. So very similar to the elementary school handbook, we've put together an executive summary listing the changes that we are proposing to this year's handbook at the middle school. I will just go through and expand on some of them. On page 7 and 8, we are just updating our staffing to reflect our current staff. On page 9, we're updating the dates for trimesters and report card publication. Similar to the elementary school, on page 9, we are removing the COVID and remote learning protocols, as those will be coming out in a separate document due to kind of the fluid nature of COVID. Page 12, we removed the cell phone policy and we replaced it under the electronic devices portion of our handbook, which is on page 20 to redundancy. Page 12, we included the description for how we want students and faculty and parents to report incidents of bullying. Those that would like to report it anonymously, we have added a form on our website that we will be sharing with students in order for them to have a place, in addition to coming to an administrator or a counselor, a place where they can report bullying right on our website. On page 17 and 18, we reorganized our disciplinary offenses using a tiered system. This is in line with what the high school handbook looks like. And so we're using similar language, such as tier 1 offenses, tier 2 offenses, tier 3 offenses. On page 18, we used to just have a link to our harassment policy. We have included in the description of that instances to include the protected classes. And we worked with our school attorneys to ensure that that language meets kind of exactly what we want it to meet. On page 18, we also included the use of hate symbols, hate speech, or other actions or language intended to target another person or group's race, color, religion, national origin, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, or disability as a tier 3 offense. This was in our handbook prior. However, we've made it explicit into what we are talking about when we're talking about things like this. On page 18, we've also included as a tier 3 offense, serious violations to the district acceptable use policy. In terms of the acceptable use policy that all students and staff adhere to in the district, it was not linked to our handbook previously. So we worked with our school attorney to get guidance on where that falls into a tier 3 offense. On page 21, we also included next to the definition of harassment exactly how to report it and who to report it to. On page 22, similar to the elementary schools, we updated the Massachusetts School Immunization Requirements to reflect this year's requirements. On page 23, we updated information on health screenings and those screenings that DESE is prioritizing this year because the middle school is a time where there are a lot of screenings in all grades 6, 7, and 8. And so we included this year's screenings there. And finally, on page 26, we included the mask and face coverings policy that we will be using this year. So those are our updates, our proposed updates, for the Gates Middle School handbook for this year.
Great, thank you, Principal Beatty. Any questions on the changes from the members of the school committee?
I just have one question is, Mr. Beatty, I know that the mask policies, of course, is, and I think that elementary principals didn't put the mask policy in their handbook. And I just want to make sure that we're consistent because this policy may or may not change throughout the year, correct? I'm assuming that the middle school is probably going to, if we stay with that 80%, it's probably never going to get there. But is that, I just want to make sure that that policy can be changed, or the handbook can be changed if our masking policy changes.
So I believe the answer to that is yes, and I believe it's a consistent policy across across the elementary, middle, and the high school.
Okay.
It is not
and last thing-
included in the elementary handbook. When we did originally have it, but then was asked to take it out only because it could change. And once something changes in the handbook, it has to be voted on.
Yeah, so I just make sure it's consistent across all schools, I would think.
Okay, thank you.
And whatever the right way is. And then I always ask this, Mr. Beatty, I'm sorry, sometimes I ask Dr. McGuire or the high school principal. Could you just explain a little bit about how parents and or students are advised of the handbook and how they authorize that they have completed it?
Certainly. So on the first day of school, all Gates students get a kind of populated form that all parents fill out every single year with who is your child's emergency contact, what medications are your child taking, what bus is your child on. Also on there is the link to the student handbook, and parents and students sign off that they have considered the handbook, that they have read it, that they understand it, and that it is also posted once it is approved right on our website. In terms of, I think a lot of the things that you probably see in our updates deal with things like harassment. And that is something, as we are a middle school working on education and working on, teaching children kind of what is right, what is not right, how to be an upstander. A lot of that ties directly into our handbook. So we reference it throughout the year. Doesn't just come out when kids make mistakes or when, students are in the office for different reasons. These rules and guidelines help us to maintain order and also to help us keep safe and have, the great school that we have. So we do reference it frequently, but it does go out on that first day of school and explains exactly where it is.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks.
And Peter, I just pulled up the handbook while Principal Beater was talking. It just says that all students are required to apply with district policies and rules, including Scituate policy EBCFA for face coverings. So we should be good there in terms of not needing to revote the handbook if anything changes to that policy.
Got it. So the policy itself isn't stated just as, yeah, so I would agree with you. I think that's fine.
Sure.
I would think that's fine that way.
And most of our policies in the handbooks are a link. So it'll just, it references the policy and takes you right to that place on the school website. So we should be good there. It doesn't list out every policy. I think we used to do that and we said, wait, this is crazy. And we got away from that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Principal Beatty?
I have a question, Mike, that actually would probably apply to all the schools. Just a follow up to Peter's question and parents confirming that they have read, parents and guardians confirming that they have read the policy, the handbooks. If they are, not all families are tech savvy. Are there hard copies available for families if they ask?
Yes, in the main office at the middle school, and I know at the high school as well, and I would assume at the elementary school too, that hard copies are available for everyone that needs one.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so if there are no other questions, and we'll move on to the high school handbook with Dr. McGuire.
Thank you. I'm going to present the high school changes, and then I'm going to pass it along to Athletic Director Payne to present the athletic handbook as well at this time. So we reviewed our handbook over the past couple of years and worked this past year with student leaders, our school council, and our teachers to reorganize and make this a useful document that is clear and that everyone is able to get to the information that they need. So you'll see we've reorganized into 7 sections: a welcome, general information and policy and procedures, academic policies and regulations, student supports, attendance policy, athletics and the SHS athletic handbook, and the code of conduct. So those sections are separated and delineated in the book, and most information within them is listed alphabetically. We changed the name to Student and Family Handbook on the cover, added a working table of contents with links directly to the section within the book so that people don't have to search through page by page, but can get to that section. In page 7, we added an introduction to introduce the book and the rationale for our handbook policies and procedures. Updated personnel on page 8. Updated my welcome letter to students and families on page 9. Added the school committee anti-racism resolution. That's something that our students felt very strongly that we should include in the handbook on page 10. After a review of our core values this year, SAIL, Serve, Achieve, Invest, and Learn have stayed. We have added the bullet, learning about others allows us to be empathetic and inclusive as a result of that review. We've added a link to the SHS website so that students and families have increased access to that information there. Added a before and after school section to clarify our start times and approved locations for students to visit when they come into the building before school starts. Added a section on bus conduct and privileges, as well as disciplinary procedures to clarify the expectations for bus ridership in accordance with our current practice. That was something that came up a couple times in the past year, and we really wanted to be able to point to that area. In our corridor passes section on page 18, we added that we'll be using an e-haul electronic pass. Under field trip, we added a clause that teachers have asked us for the past couple years to include for good standing and the student makeup work responsibility for going on trips. We absolutely support field trips. We want to make sure that everyone is taking them responsibly and that their academic work and standing does factor into the choice to take a trip. We changed the name of the library to the Multimedia Learning Commons, the Harbor. We want people to understand that a library is more than just books, that this is a place to collaborate, to innovate, to work together. So we really wanted to incorporate that Multimedia Learning Commons in the title. Unlike Principal Beatty, who condensed his phone and technology, we actually are calling out a section on personal phone calls because there is an upward trend with students and calls. We want students and their families to be aware that no student should be accepting personal phone calls. And the trend is, unfortunately, that they're typically from parents. So during class time, we'd like to limit those calls and really draw attention to that. We added re-entry procedures if a student is out due to hospitalization, medical, or some other long-term reason, even suspension, to show the team that's going to work with the student and support that student upon the re-entry and what that process looks like. Updated our school safety protocols as well, just to reflect our current practice. And then added a number of supports and descriptors to those. Our academic mentoring program for students who find themselves ineligible for clubs and athletics due to grades and being able to support that. Our Harbor Academy program for upperclassmen who may be lacking in credit or at risk of not graduating, and how we can support them with some innovative programming. Our NHS tutors who are here and available as a support for any student who needs academic support, and our student support team along with the procedures for that support team process as a regular ed intervention for students. We've added that in reporting an absence, there's options for emailing or calling into voicemail like the rest of the schools in our district. We have a dedicated voicemail box for those calls now. The next two are DESE protocol for high schools and notifying families of student absence. If they don't call us to notify of the absence, we have to call them. We also have to investigate and record extended absences. And there's protocol for notifying families, meeting with them, and helping to support a student who has been absent 5 or more times in a quarter. So we have procedures to ensure that they're meeting with success and that we can help them in that process. We added classroom communication to just highlight the chain of communication between students and families and staff. When should I speak with a teacher? When would I go to a department chair versus an assistant principal or a principal to help students and families get timely feedback that they're looking for. On page 37, we added a GPA calculation worksheet for student self-checks because that's something that students are very interested in families, especially upperclassmen, and being able to go in and input your classes is something that can really help them along the way, especially with regard to college planning process. We added an internet safety section just based on supporting student safety and some of the difficulties that we've seen our students experience at the high school level. We wanted to address and acknowledge that. A link to the athletic handbook, which you'll hear a little more about shortly. In our discipline code of conduct section, we added a statement on restorative practices to explain what that is and to reflect our current practice. The tiered 1 through 3 infractions and consequences, again, is done in conjunction with Gates Middle School and is something that we discussed last year in a school committee meeting, sharing and being more upfront of information and the levels of infractions and the types of consequences that could result from certain behaviors and activities. Cell phones, we just kind of clarified the consequences, first offense, second offense, and the measures that we take to support students in responsible cell phone use. And then our mask face covering addendum, similar to the middle school, references the policy. It is at the end of our handbook. If something changes, if school committee changes the policy, that's something that we can very easily change. I do have one missing on this list. We have the updated school immunization requirements for 2021-22, but they did not make it into the handbook, but it is the same as the middle school, and that would go right into page 24 under health services. So I apologize for that error. I'm going to pause for any questions before I turn it over to Athletic Director Scott Payne.
Okay, are there any questions for Dr. McGuire?
I have just one question, Dr. McGuire, about the extended absences. Are those not including medical absences?
That's correct, unexcused absences.
Okay, thank you.
I thought it was great at the beginning that you mentioned the student feedback that you've gotten on the handbook. So I'm glad you're getting feedback from the students as you go through and build this out. That's great to hear. And this might be more for Superintendent Burkhead, but you know, that classroom communication section might be something that's good that we look at as a district overall across all 3 school levels and put on our website somewhere, just so that it's easy for people to go and access if they do have a question on the best way to communicate out for any questions or concerns they have with their student.
Certainly, Chairman Long, and I want to follow up on your last point about the putting up Ms. Driscoll's presentation. We have been working on our website and a new look, and done a lot of great work last year. Miss Emily Matthews has been doing yeoman's work with Kim Peters and assisting us in doing that. So I'm happy to report that a lot of our community will be seeing changes in our website with more easy to access and user-friendly portals to gather all this information. So the answer to that is yes, we'll have certain segments and places people can go to get this information, and we'll be sure to update this stuff on places where people can access this. We do want the website to be our one-stop shop for everything, and we want it to be user-friendly. It's not there yet. It's much improved from last year, but it is a goal of ours this year, and I think you'll see marked improvement in your ability to access all documents, but in ease of understanding and navigation through the website as well.
I do have one question. It's actually a great segue from Dr. McGuire to AD Payne. And I hope it's not a can of worms, but do we know what our official logo is? Because as I look at the logo on the handbook, it's the old school, which I like. Hold on, I want to show it. So this is the logo, and that's the logo. I was a 1990 graduate student high school, and that was our logo. I just don't know what our real logo is. And I just, point of, I guess, for discussion at some point in the future. I don't know if this guy, I forget his name, is our true logo or if we have a new logo, just for something to discuss in the future.
That's the Scituate Sailor, and he was there in 1987 too.
Yeah, but I don't ever see him anywhere else, I don't think. So again, it doesn't really matter, but I think that as a district, we need to figure out who are, not a can of worms, but just be consistent in our logoing.
So from a marketing and imaging and branding perspective, you're absolutely right that the Scituate Sailor is our logo, and that's something that we are proud of and support. We have discussions every once in a while about whether the sailor should be updated. The kind of sailor of today may look a little different than the traditional sailor, but the sailor is the high school logo. I believe that each school has their own logo within the district, so that's ours is the sailor.
Okay, great. No, and again, just something to mention because I know that we see various ones across the district, but it's all good.
He is a little difficult to embroider on some of our material, some of our clothing materials, but we do try to get him out in print.
Thank you.
Mr. Gates, if I can just follow up on that. That was a question I asked too, because I think each elementary has their own mascot, if you will, or logo. The anchor was used last year in a lot of correspondence that I was familiar with. The sailor is used, so we don't have a true one size fits all at this point. It did come up and it has come up. My response at the time was, when we're looking for that next controversial issue to tackle, let's jump on that. I think we have our hands full with those during COVID, so we want to let that cool off before we get into that. But it is on our radar and we are aware of it, and you are 100% correct. So at this point, we don't want to rock the boat. No pun intended there.
No.
And we're going to stick with what each school uses and people are comfortable with. And at a later date, that's certainly a conversation that we need to have a unified front on that. And I think it would be a good opportunity to get the community involved as well, but also respect tradition.
Yep. All good. I just happened to see it on the cover of the handbook, and that's what made me think about it. But no, totally understand. Not a priority by any means.
Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Morai, do you want to turn it over to AD Payne?
I would like to do that. Yes, thank you.
Mr. Payne, bottom left-hand corner. Yeah, there you go.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Just as a quick side note to the logo conversation, when I first got hired, I went to Rockland Athletics to get some Scituate apparel made, and to have the sailor embroidered on my shirt versus the split Scituate S was $9 more per shirt. So I went with the split Scituate S, but I do understand that the pirate is the logo of the high school. But in agreement
The sailor.
The
Oh
Scituate sailor.
Sailor. Not a
I apologize.
It's the sailor.
No pirates. That's the hull. The hull's the pirates.
That's a mistake on my part. I apologize.
I think Mr. Payne forgot who's signing his checks now.
It would be neat to have a district-wide logo, and I agree that that's something that, maybe we can tackle down the road and have like a contest amongst the students to create a logo if we want to go away from the sailor. But so I do understand that the sailor is the logo at the high school. So regarding the handbook, I'll be completely honest with you. The handbook will be a work in progress for me throughout the year. I did make a few updates, but they're minor. It was more names and email addresses and things like that. I can look and go through page. Mr. Gates, do you have that to bring it up to share?
I didn't see it.
Yeah,
In our
Mr. Payne,
backup.
we did not get the athletic handbook in our backup. So if we need to vote that, we'd have to do it on the 20th.
Okay, so do you want me to go through? There's only minor changes other than the fact that I removed the COVID-19 information that basically came from the MIAA. Otherwise, it was just basically updating some links and changing the athletic director's name and email address. But it is a document that I'm going to need to pay close attention to as we move through the year. I already know that one major item that needs to be added to the handbook is how we proceed with adding teams and programs, which I will work on that, and that will be included in next year's handbook. But other than that, there were really no major changes. And if I need to present it again at the next meeting, that's fine.
Okay, yeah, if you don't mind doing that, I don't think there's anything that's going to be really pressing between now and the 20th. If there is, a superintendent can let us know. And then I know, was it last week, you were approved by the Board of Selectmen as well for advertising at the fields?
Yes.
Yes. We might need something in the handbook on that as well, just to make sure that that's clear for all the boosters.
So I don't know that we will, because that's just for this year. Or do you want it in this year's handbook? Is that
In
what
this year's handbook. Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
We can always take it out next year if we need to, but it should be clear in the handbook.
Sure, okay. Any other questions pertaining to that? I just would like to note that we're just under 400 fall athletes for the fall, which I've been told, I don't know for sure, but I've been told that may be the highest number of fall athletes we've had in a very long time, which is very promising to see that the kids are participating and are active and getting engaged.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. I'm glad students are able to get back into sports with through the schools. So seeing no other questions from the rest of the committee, I will entertain a motion in order of how these were presented to approve the handbooks, unless anyone has any last questions or concerns. So the first would be the elementary handbooks.
I'll make a motion to approve the Scituate Elementary handbooks as presented in our backup.
I second.
So the roll call vote, Long, yes. Lindblom,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
and Brandolini.
Yes.
We'll move on to the middle school handbook.
Make a motion to approve the Gates Middle School Handbook 2021-2022 as presented in our backup.
I second.
Roll call vote again. Gates,
Yes.
Lindblom,
Yes.
Long, yes, and Brandolini.
Yes.
And then finally, the high school handbook.
Make a motion to approve the Scituate High School Student Handbook for year 2021-2022 as presented in our backup.
I second.
Brandolini,
Yes.
Long, yes. Lindblom,
Yes.
and Gates.
Yes.
Thank you to all the principals for presenting tonight. I'm sure there's a lot of hard work done by your staffs as well. So thank you for putting these together, and I'm glad you'll have them for the first day of school. So moving on is the only opportunity for public comment from the people attending the meeting. If people want to use the reaction icon to raise their hand, I will call on everyone in essence on mute. And as always, if you can state your name and either address or school affiliation for the record, that would be appreciated. The first person is M. Ramaposha.
Hi. First, I wanted to welcome the new superintendent. I'm very excited to hear about your plans for improving the curriculum, and you seem to have a clear plan and a vision, which almost always ends up working out. So I see that there's a good road ahead. I just wanted to know
I'm sorry, before you keep going, it might have cut out at the beginning. Do you mind just saying your name and either address or school affiliation?
Yeah, it's Michelle Ramaposha, and I live on Sedgwick. I'm a Hatherley, Jenkins, Gates, Scituate High School parent. I wanted to ask about whether there is any plan to try to create a program like one that my oldest child had participated in, which is where you high school seniors can attend their senior year at a community college. Their classes are, they get college credit for those classes, and usually the college credit they receive can be used at state colleges, at least within the state. So that is one question. The other question I have is whether there are any plans to create a virtual learning option, post-pandemic and also during pandemic. This is an option that worked really well for some students who have sensory issues and have trouble attending school, have trouble with school refusal. And this is a real issue for many students. And also, obviously, we may need to go remote. And so I wonder if there is some kind of plan in place for in case we do need to do that, in case there are, there's this big spike in COVID cases. So those are my two questions. Thank you.
Okay, we can definitely take that under advisement and get back to you. Right now, I don't think the state is allowing a virtual learning option. I think every school has to be in person 5 days a week. So that at least during the pandemic, I'm going to assume the answer to that is no, but we can talk about that and get your response. Right, the next person was Laurie Ricker.
Hi, thanks, Mike. Laurie Withrow, 62 Ann Vinyl Road. I just wanted to also mention and give feedback on the first little presentation tonight on the curriculum. I'm excited on what I heard tonight, and sounds like Ms. Driscoll is very data driven, which I love. So thank you very much for starting that conversation tonight. And I really look forward to hearing more about that as the year goes on. But that sounds great, and I appreciate the work since you're only a month into this. But I can see that you're already working closely with Mr. Burkhead and the other people on the staff. So appreciate that curriculum focus that I think we definitely need right now. And I just want to say thank you.
Great, thank you. And then the next person is Kristen Scott.
Good evening, Kristen Scott, 93 Lawson Terrace. I'll start off by saying I really appreciate Ms. Driscoll's, motivation that she expressed tonight. I'm really encouraged by what sounds like a very strong commitment. It's very refreshing to hear. I also appreciate Mr. Burkhead acknowledging, somewhat of a lack of confidence parents are having in our curriculum today. I have very high hopes of having that confidence restored as soon as possible. I was doing some reading about our school system and how we compare to others. The US News and World Report ranked, all the public schools throughout the Commonwealth. In 2019, Scituate ranked 40th. This year we ranked 102. Sliding from a ranking of 40th in the state to 102 should resonate with everybody on the call. To add greater perspective, this year Norwell ranked 22nd, Cohasset 33, Duxbury 41, Hingham 55, and lastly, Hull ranking at 101. So again, Scituate ranks at 102, which is just below where Hull is ranking at 101. I'm not particularly interested in an explanation of how we slid from the ranking of 40 to 102, but I am entirely interested in, seeing those numbers reversed as quickly as possible. I think our family, like the majority of those on this call, chose Scituate almost exclusively because of its school system. And I've expressed some concern in the past about, other focuses kind of taking away from the valuable academic time. I'd like to see, other focuses and academic excellence, achieved simultaneously, but I am lacking faith and looking to have that faith restored. Again, I'm really counting on Ms. Driscoll and her leadership alongside the rest of you. I feel like we're adding agendas and goals to the classroom, but we're not adding time to the day. So I'm trying to figure out how we accomplish all this at once. And I guess I would encourage all parents to pay attention to the performance of our schools, you know, and hold your standards where they were, I guess, when you originally sought out Scituate as a town for your family. You know, these are our tax dollars and we are the ultimate stakeholders as parents. You know, we have a great team, you know, leading our Scituate public schools, but nobody's looking out for our children the way that we are. So I would urge all of us to feel empowered by that and hold our system standards, you know, as high as they were the day that we moved to Scituate. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments. And I completely agree with your last point about making sure that parents hold the schools and the school committee accountable. You know, we've heard a lot from parents and families over the past year, especially when these meetings are more remote. And it used to be we might have 2 people at a school committee meeting and no one paying attention. So I completely agree with your last comment about reaching out, especially if they either have any questions or concerns on our district and where we stand.
Thank you.
The next person was Tom Esch.
Yeah, hi there, Tom Esch. We have a rising 3rd grader at Cushing. I just want to say I thought Ms. Driscoll did a great job in her presentation, and I'm especially encouraged by the acceleration academies. I think that's hugely important with an eye toward inclusivity in terms of bringing kids up to speed, but also it sounds as though there may be some room for other kinds of opportunities for kids seeking additional opportunities above and beyond what they've seen. And I think that's a tremendous development. And I applaud Ms. Driscoll and all involved for including that. I think it's great. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And then the next person is Paul Scott.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to follow up. I've got going to be a 5th and 3rd grader at Cushing, and you know I looked at the numbers that Kristen Scott talked about the ranking of Scituate schools, and I dug a little deeper, and I think I echo everybody's opinion about Assistant Superintendent Driscoll and her love of data and love of numbers. I think a lot of the terms that get thrown out there about systematic racism and critical race theory and DEI and things like that can be, you know, subjective, misinterpreted, and so on. But I think data and numbers really do tell a story in most cases. So, you know, I looked at the 102 ranking that Scituate has in 2021, and you know, I'm looking at it, and I see under math and reading performance rank, and our ranking is 239, and that's out of approximately 340 public schools in Massachusetts. You know, some of the numbers, graduation rate, you know, Scituate, typically relatively affluent community, primarily 2-parent homes. Kids are going to graduate. You know, we're not small towns out in Western Mass where kids may not graduate because they go to work or they join their parents in a business. So some of those things are demographics, but seeing our ranking at 239 for math and reading performance, in all honesty, scares the heck out of me. So I certainly hope that, you know, this assessment that Superintendent Driscoll talked about, the needs assessment, sounds like a great idea, because we clearly need either a needs assessment or a reassessment. I'm somewhat have some questions about whether or not why this needs assessment hasn't been done the last couple of years, but I guess better late than never. I did have, and I know this isn't question and answer, but I was curious about, I've heard, you know, secondhand people talking at the coffee shop about some changes that were planned in the curriculum for this upcoming school year. And I don't know if the Assistant Superintendent Driscoll wants to address this or not, but were there some changes that were scheduled to be implemented that now have been put on hold due to this needs assessment? And if so, what were those changes going to be? And I guess why aren't they being implemented? But again, I realize it's not a question and answer, but again, I appreciate learning a little bit about the curriculum tonight. I look forward to more transparency and parents just at least being aware of what their kids are being taught, how it's being taught, so they can be really good discussions. And at the end of the day, we can all accomplish what we want, which is to have the best school system possible have the greatest kids possible. And so I appreciate the time tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Scott. We can definitely take those questions away. Okay, so seeing no other hands raised, we'll move on in the agenda. The next item in the agenda is the acceptance of minutes. We had minutes from the August 9th and August 16th meetings. If there's no questions or issues in the minutes, we'll entertain a motion on both of those.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the August 9th, 2021 school committee meeting.
Second.
Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Long, yes. Gates,
Yes.
Limbaugh,
Yes.
and Brindley.
Yes.
Then is there a motion for the August 16th minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for the August 16th, 2021 school committee meeting.
Second.
Okay, thank you. So a roll call vote. Gates,
Yes.
Limbaugh,
Yes.
Brendaline,
Yes.
and Long, yes. Okay, thank you. So in terms of correspondence, I believe last Thursday, Kim Peters sent the four of us the backup for the joint Board of Selectmen meeting to appoint a new school committee member. All three of you should have had that, but if you didn't, let me know and I'll make sure Kim gets it to you. That's the only correspondence that I saw. So move on to warrants with Dr. Dutch.
So you have one warrant in your packet this evening. It's warrant S210819 for a total amount of $191,557.78. Those items of note outside of our local budget through in the revolving accounts through the school lunch account, $2,375 for exhaust cleaning, which is an annual process. The IDEA grant, the special ed grant, $4,170. From the circuit breaker account, $35,000, which is for tuition for a student. Through the COVID fund, the coronavirus relief fund, $19,214.25 for Wilson language. And then in our LEA budget, those accounts that had significant expenditures, private school tuition, $64,576.66, one payment to Cardinal Cushing, and to the Grove School. To collaboratives, the Pilgrim Collaborative specifically, $10,147.50. Social studies textbooks, $11,795.63. Those were for new textbooks, specifically the AP Psychology course. And those are all your significant expenditures. Again, happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions from the committee?
Thank you.
Seeing none. Superintendent Burkett, I see your hand raised. You have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Long. I just wanted to follow up on the public comment, and one of our other focuses on being a great district is communication and healthy communication. So I think there's a lot of common ground in those public comments. Certainly agree with pretty much everything that was said. One thing I do want to just follow up on is please reach out to us. Our emails are up on the website. If you're not sure who to go to, the rule of thumb is if it's a classroom issue, whether it's curriculum or things, it goes to the teacher. We haven't started school, so that probably doesn't apply yet. If it's something on the bigger scope of, I know Mr. Scott had mentioned he had heard some things about curriculum and things. We can certainly answer those specific questions. So there's no, hearing it from the horse's mouth type of thing. So that if people can reach out to me and I can direct them to the right person, whether it's Ms. Driscoll or the principals. So we ask that people just contact us. We'll be happy to give you the honest truth. We've we want to show our warts and all, and that's how you start to get to be great, is to brag about what you're really good at and continue to do that, but also to be transparent about what needs fixing and how we're going to go about doing it without blaming people, but just getting the right people in the right places and getting the right input. So I think that's what we're all about, and it starts with good communication and honesty. So for those folks that are listening tonight, or will see this later, please reach out directly to us. And if right now, if it's a general question on curriculum, that was a good topic tonight, and will be ongoing, and certainly something we're focusing on. Reach out to myself or Ms. Driscoll, and we'll direct you in the right spot to get those questions answered, so you hear it from us and you're up to speed on exactly what's happening within our district. Thank you.
Great, thank you for adding that. Okay. Now, is there any other business that the school committee wanted to bring up tonight?
I just have a quick comment too, also, Mr. Long, to kind of piggyback off what Mr. Burke had said. I think when Ms. Driscoll just presented the explanation, just those quick little, here's the difference between standards, curriculum, and lessons, and here's how it breaks down. I think that's really helpful for parents and community members to hear. Education's different than, a lot of different types of work. I mean, there's lots of different layers, and I guess, for lack of a better word, red tape and considerations that go into changes and budgets and yearly cycles on things and how things need to proceed, and special education considerations, and such a large machine to make changes in. So I think anytime, sorry, everybody, that anytime we can have those sort of explanations of what, because it's like we drop our kids off at the door, say goodbye, have a good day, and then, things like that kind of trickle out who really knows what, goes on, so to speak. So I think it's nice to have explanations of, how that kind of breaks down: standards, curriculum, lessons. So any time we can get a little education piece ourselves as parents and community members, I think is appreciated on many levels. And, just going forward too, I just want to make mention for our community, just to keep in mind too here. I mean, we have a brand new superintendent going into year 2, a brand new assistant superintendent, brand new director of DEI, brand new business and finance director, brand new special education director, and, fairly young now. They're all pretty settled principals. And so I think we're in a really good place for some amazing changes for our district. And I think I'm very excited as a parent and school committee member to see how we kind of accelerate into the future. So I think this is a really great time for Scituate. I'm going to mute before Leo comes on and crashes us again.
Some great points. Thanks, Nicole.
I do want to thank Ms. Brandolini. The last time, although it was included in the group, I was called young. It was a long time ago. So thank you.
I just want to echo what Ms. Brandolini said too. I mean, part of our main responsibilities as a school committee is to hire a superintendent and to approve the budget. And just to echo what Nicole said, we have a very new team to the district, and that's part of our doing. And this is, our reputations are on the line too. So I would echo Ms. Brandolini. I'm very excited about the future. The past is the past, and now we're looking forward, and we're going to be positive. And I think we have the right people in the right spot. So as a parent, as a school committee member, I'm very excited. Hopefully we can get this COVID behind us, and we can let our leaders really do what they do best, and have the best school district in the world. So I want to mention that as well.
Could I chime in too, Mike? I think one of the, we've had a lot of questions about curriculum and what we're teaching. And I think one of the most important links that Ms. Driscoll will put in the presentation is the link to DESE. And that's where it all starts. And anybody has any questions about what we're teaching, start at the DESE website. And if you can, try to navigate that, great. And if you have questions, everybody's happy to respond, and we're being totally transparent of what's going on in the classrooms.
Yep, and I think that transparency is key. We're a public school committee, school board representing a public school for the community. So, we want to be as transparent, as open with everything going on inside the schools as possible, whether that's through an email or through conversations in the street or whatever. We want to make sure that gets out. So in terms of future agenda items, so our next scheduled meetings are actually September 8th and 9th, where we will have the joint interviews of a replacement for Mr. Hayes with the Board of Selectmen. On 9/15, we will appoint a new school committee member, again with the Board of Selectmen. Last I heard, all 5 members of the Board of Selectmen are planning on attending those interviews and appointment process, which is great to hear. And then our next scheduled actual school committee member meeting will be September 20th, which will also include that new school committee member. There's nothing else on the agenda and no other comments or questions from the school committee. We do have an executive session planned tonight. We will not be returning to open session after that. And the reason we'll be moving into executive session is for reason number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, since an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining of the public body. And I, the chair, declare that an executive session is necessary to protect the bargaining position of the body. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to enter executive session without returning to open meeting.
So moved.
For a second?
I second.
Okay. So we'll do a roll call vote. Long, yes. Gates,
Yes.
Lindblom,
Yes.
and Brandolini.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. We'll see you at our next meeting.
Mike, I asked Dr. Dutch to join us if that's okay.
Works for me.
Thank you.
I
Oh,
apologize. Are you
Bianca
done?
and Leo floating around the whole meeting. The boys have football practice like every night.
As long as you kick them out for executive session, we're good.
Well, wait, I'm sorry, just let's wait here a second.